If you ask me today, are they real life contenders? Can they win 16 games in the playoffs without losing 4 of 7? I'm going to say a tentative yes. Welcome back to the Kenny Beecham podcast, y'all. The first episode of 2024. Now, if you follow me on my other platforms, whether it be Twitter or what, mostly Twitter, I guess that's where I do most of the damage. I've been hinting that 2024 was going to be the year of leveling up. The first thing we can officially announce now that we're in the year 2024 is that this podcast, the Kenny Beecham podcast, is now a part of the Enjoy Basketball Podcast Network. Some of y'all saw it coming. Because I'm the owner of the Enjoy Basketball brand and I'm the owner of this podcast. So it just makes sense. But now we officially can announce it. And it's not the only podcast that we have under the platform. Numbers on the Board, formerly known as Through the Wire. My other podcast is also under this umbrella. So it's been kind of cool these last couple months trying to figure out how to kind of start a brand and turn it into a podcast network. And there are so many other things coming in 2024 that we can't announce at this exact moment. But I do want to let you know that we're here. And we're here to take over NBA. Well, do we want to stick to NBA? Let's say NBA in 2024. Maybe in 2025, we get some football podcasts, maybe a baseball podcast, a soccer podcast. I don't know what the future holds. But as of right now, Numbers on the Board and the Kenny Beecham podcast are part of our podcasting network. You know, I just see so many different creators or people in the space owning their content and owning their things. And that was just something that was very important for me as I went through like different contract negotiations with my previous company, a House of Highlights / Bleach Report / TNT / Turner / Warner. It's a lot of companies. I wanted to own everything that I was a part of. And we got that. And the Kenny Beecham podcast is a part of the network. Now, I talked about this on Twitter just a little bit because we just opened up the new year. And I'm always curious to if people have New Year's resolutions or is that something that they really dive into. And most people said that, no, if I want to better my life, I'll do it any day, not wait for January 1st. And I respect that. But the way I kind of look at New Year's resolutions is reflecting on the year as it's done and saying like, oh, I could have done this better. Oh, I could have done this better. And there are a lot of different things in this podcast versus the content that I produce that I am, again, like I said, trying to level up as part of a New Year's resolution. So if you've been here on the journey of the Kenny Beecham podcast for the last 7 months or so, again, I don't know the exact number. I appreciate you, but it is time for us to hit a new level, right? Now, over our hiatus, which was basically a week, you know, we brought in New Year's. New Year's is about family. It's about celebrating another year of life. And part of the family aspect, most people, when they see me and they know what I do, they want to immediately talk ball with me, which is fine. I don't mind it. Now, that's not the only thing that I'm interested in life, but most people know me as Kenny Beecham, basketball guy. And there are a few people in my family that are also basketball guys. They may not have a podcast or they may not have a YouTube channel, but they're basketball guys. And when the OG Anunoby trade happened, I got a text from an old friend, a guy that I haven't talked to in quite some time. And I actually don't even know where his fandom really lies, but let's just say he's an NBA fan. And he didn't text me thinking about what this means for the Knicks or grading it like most of us did. His text said, I don't think the Toronto Raptors should blow it up. And I was like, whoa, where is this coming from? Obviously, the Raptors have been a team that have been in conversations of trading Pascal and trading OG for quite some time. They finally let the first domino fall and OG Anunoby going to the Knicks. But he said he didn't believe that the Raptors should blow it up. And again, this is a guy that I really respect. He's not, and I don't mean this in a negative connotation, he's not necessarily a casual NBA fan. I know he watches basketball as I do. You know, we talking on a nightly basis. And when he's not watching, he's probably watching other people talk about the things that they watched. You know, he's probably listening to this podcast. I don't know. And I was just curious. And I said, what do you mean? Gave me a FaceTime. And we talked for a little bit. I mean, a little bit, maybe 2 minutes, 2 minutes max. And he said that us at the crib rooting for our teams, root for a blow up way too often. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. But I told him, I don't even want to chat about it. Whatever you're thinking right now, I will call you later because I want to kind of think about this and internalize this and talk to my platform about it before I hit him up. So after I'm done with this podcast, I will be shooting him a text and trying to talk what he was really thinking. Other than the one part I did get from him is that the Raptors are a team that have been in the middle for some time. mostly since the championship. And even before the championship, they were, I can't say in the middle because they had a season where they were the number 1 seed, the number 2 seed, but let's just say not real contenders, but carried their way into playoffs every single year. They've always been a team towards the middle, except for the Tampa year. And I don't blame them for being bad at Tampa. If you're 1,000 miles away from your normal fan base for an entire season, you're just not going to be good. And that ended up getting them Scotty Barnes. But they've been a team that's been middle of the pack / towards the top. And obviously the one time they won a championship, they went from a team that was competitive. Some people might have saw them as contenders, but for the most part, they were fake contenders in LeBron's Eastern Conference. And then they made the trade for Kawhi, and boom, they get their first championship in league history. He's saying that, hey, if they would have blown it up in the times that fans thought they should have, they would have blown it up, trading Kyle Lowry, trading DeMar DeRozan, traded away all the people that have been a part of their core for the last 3 seasons to reset because that core had reached its limit. They would have never got a championship. And I was like, okay, all right, enough. No more talking. Let me think about this. So I have. And it made me think about the teams that are currently in the middle, building towards the middle. Because most of us, again, us NBA fans, and I'm kind of a part of this at the moment because my Bulls are not good. I know for the last 17 or so games, the last 15 or so games, they were 10-5. Like, it was pretty solid. But I am still a guy that's been asking for the blow up. DeMar, Zach LaVine, Vucevic. I want to hit that next era of Bulls basketball. And ultimately, even with me thinking that, I know that once you hit the blow up, the 4-year span in a lot of cases, it's going to be dreadful basketball. It's going to be hard to really get up every single night to watch that team play. But that is something that I, for the most part, have been ready to get done. I've been team blow it up. The Bulls, currently the Raptors, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Pacers are 4 teams actively that are, in this moment of time, we don't know what these teams are going to do at the deadline and stuff, are actively building towards the middle. Right now, we still believe that Pascal Siakam might get traded, but for the most part, from reports from Woj and Shams, are saying that the Raptors are looking to see what they have at the moment before they make a decision on Pascal. And since the trade of OG Anunoby, they have 2 wins and one good one. The Grizzlies game actually just ended as I'm recording this. It wasn't a pretty finish, but Emmanuel quickly has looked really good as a lead guard through the first 2 games. So maybe they decide to stay towards the middle instead of trading Pascal Siakam. But is that worth? Do you get worth from this? The Brooklyn Nets are the most confusing team in basketball right now. I don't know what the hell they're doing. They're a hard team to watch, but I understand when reports came out today that they're not looking to move Mikal Bridges. They don't own their own first-round pick, so what incentive do we have to be really bad this year, right? The Bulls we already talked about, and the Pacers, for their entire franchise history, has been the poster boy of building towards the middle. Obviously, it has not resulted in championships, but you pull off a few trades here and there, and now you have a franchise player without having to get them. So I wanted to take a step back, take a screenshot of the NBA contenders across the association and figure out, how did they get to the point where they are now? Did they have a full-on blow-up, or did they build towards the middle? The first thing that comes to mind, the team that I believe is the best team in basketball, even though they just lost to the OKC Thunder, the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics have had 1 year after the KG trade that they missed the playoffs. Now, these are extreme circumstances because you can argue that was a blow up, right? You traded away KG, you traded away Paul Pierce, you traded away everybody, and you got back draft capital, but it wasn't a bottoming out because the only time that they had a sub 500 season or a missing the playoff season was that immediate year after the KG trade. And then they get the Isaiah Thomas trade to go through, and they end up using the draft picks they got from the KG trade to draft Jaylen Brown, and then get the pick that was Markelle Fultz they ultimately flipped into Jason Tatum. So the question is, does that count as a team that blew it up? Or did they kind of work towards the middle? Because a lot of times the blow up is mostly a full-on breakdown and rebuild. And that usually takes years upon years. We're talking a 3-year, 5-year span. And for the Celtics, it really was just one season. Again, I don't want to say lucked out, but Isaiah Thomas came onto the scene as a guy that was really good the previous season to like, oh snap, the brother's making an all-NBA team at 5'8". And now we got a few pieces around him that are adequate to decent NBA players, you know? It's just 1 year. The next team is the Milwaukee Bucks. This is a team that star came outside of the lottery. And I think that's like the recipe when I talk about some of these other teams that have built towards the middle or whatever. Star came post-lottery. Obviously, Giannis was, 1 pick outside the lottery? So close to a lottery pick, right? And since Giannis had become a full-time starter, they've only missed the playoffs 1 different time. They've done a bunch of timely trades, a Drew Holiday trade. The one of the most underrated things, and this is just me doing a little bit of research going into this video, is I didn't really remember in 2018 what the NBA market was like. Brook Lopez signed to the the Milwaukee Bucks for $3 million. And that was after he was coming off a max contract in his last year in LA. Obviously, the Lakers let him walk because of the LeBron era was starting. But for $3 million, I went back so far into archives for this episode, which is super fun. And I know last episode I said it was going to be a little bit more free-flowing, whatever. This is one of the researched episodes, okay? And research for me is light compared to some of other YouTubers out there. But anyway, I went back in the archives to go through like Lakers message board / subreddits when Brook Lopez left, and everybody was super upset. Not that he left, because originally the tweet was Brook Lopez signed the Milwaukee Bucks. And then the tweet after that said he signed for $3 million. And you're like, whoa. Lakers fans like, man, he is actually the type of center that you kind of want aside LeBron James. He's a stretch five. And at this point, we hadn't seen all defensive version of Brook Lopez. He was mostly just a stretch five who saw his numbers go down a little bit. And I think that's one of the reasons why he signed for $3 million. He was kind of looked at as a one-way player for the most part. And obviously, when Milwaukee's turned into an all-defensive caliber player, a runner-up to DPOY. But good timely trades, right? Bring in Brook Lopez in 2018. The Chris Middleton addition was kind of a throw-in. He was a G League player, a part of the Brandon Jennings trade. This is a team that has had, don't get me wrong, they've had years, and I mean years of being bad. But the core that they've built right now, the core that helped them win the championship, wasn't from a complete teardown / blow-up. Hell, they drafted Giannis, the 15th overall pick. And they traded the capital to get Drew. They traded the Brandon Jennings stuff to get Brandon Knight and Chris Middleton that blossomed into an all-star. The next team is the Nuggets, our reigning NBA champions. Their star, similarly to the Milwaukee Bucks, was drafted outside the lottery. Their star was drafted in the second round. So this is also an extreme circumstance, because how often are you drafting one of the greatest players of all time? And yes, I'm giving him that stamp right now because two-time MVP plus NBA champion. There's only 13 other players in the league that have done that before. How many times you see them in the second round? It's just not often. But they've only had one top 10 pick, and that was the season after the Nikola Jokic draft, and that ended up being Jamal Murray. And then they had a 13th overall pick, which was Donovan Mitchell. Oops. And then a 14th overall pick, which was Michael Porter Jr. But again, they never broke it down, and they did have bad seasons. Do not get me wrong. I don't want to act like the Denver Nuggets are this pillar of success before Jokic, but the way they got to the core that helped them win the championship was let's go get 4 years of first round, 4 years of top 5 picks, and now we're going to compete. It was draft a star, make the decision, because I don't know if y'all remember, it was him or Nurkic. Who do we decide? Now, the front office will tell you that it was never a question for them, but go back and read some of those articles. Go back and read some of those articles of the Yusuf Nurkic trade. Nobody from the articles I recently read for this, nobody was saying that, oh my God, this is a huge mistake. But they're like, I wonder if the Nuggets will regret this. The answer is not even a little bit. Now, Jokic's rookie season, I think he ended up 3rd in Rookie of the Year, so it's not like a huge surprise and ended up being good, but it is a huge surprise that he became one of the greatest players of all time. And they had to make the decision. And then the last team has the benefit of being in a huge market, and as the Clippers. The Clippers have been also a team that's been a pillar. This is a team that has been a pillar of regular season success, but they have the big market benefit that was like, Kawhi Leonard wants to play for our team. Let's go get Kawhi Leonard. And then the Heat, and these are just the contending teams, you decide. Teams, the Heat is another one of those teams that, for the most part, in the Eric Spoelstra era, have been relatively good. Even the years they were bad, they weren't trying to get top overall pick bad. They were 13th overall pick bad to get Bam Adebayo or just missing the playoffs. So that right there is 3 true contenders. Milwaukee, Boston, and Denver. And 2 borderline contenders. It's all up to your interpretation. The first 3, there's no doubt about. The last 2, the Clippers and the Heat, you can make your decisions at home. What about the other thing? What about building from the bottom? Starting over from scratch, trading away the good players you have now for future draft capital and drafting in the Sam Hinkie way. The first example is, of course, the 76ers. Now, this 76ers team is really good. Joel Embiid is my MVP at the moment. Tyrese Maxey is my most improved player at the moment. They've been having a ridiculous season. But in order to get here, they have 4 of the worst years of basketball that you could ever have. They had a 19 and a 17 win season. Like, that's bad. They got Ben Simmons from it, who obviously is not on the team anymore, but made an all-NBA team in his prime. It's crazy. I'm talking about a 8-year-old and talking about in his prime. That was like 8 years ago, I feel like. Obviously, Joel Embiid is one of the greatest. And then the Tyrese Maxey pick was late in the first round or whatever. But they broke it down. They traded away Drew Holiday to get Nerlens Noel. They had 4 years of not having no NBA players on the roster. Like, they actively tried to build through the draft. The next team, Minnesota Timberwolves. They have 3 first overall picks. Now, they had 3 first overall picks to help build the core that they have now. Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, and of course, Wiggins is a part of a trade. I'm sorry. But that was part of a breakdown to get the first overall pick to trade away Kevin Love. So it still works in the same conversation. The OKC Thunder had 2 years of really bad basketball, but their star did not come through tanking. Their star came through a trade of a breakdown, right? So these are the conversations for blowing it up. And then the Kings had 17 years of awful hoops in order to get De'Aaron Fox, and then got another lottery pick of Tyrese Haliburton and traded that lottery pick in order to get Sabonis, their core guys at the moment. So the question is, what is the better way? Now, I also wanted to look through history, right? And history is hard to look at in this conversation or this argument, because I honestly, and I truly, truly do believe that things are shifting in the association, where the formula to be an NBA champion might be different this year in the foreseeable future versus what we have been accustomed to. The first thing is that there's no super teams in the current NBA. You might look at the Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant pairing in their 60 minutes and say they're plus 24 and say, oh, that might be a super team. But as of right now, there's no super teams across the association. We're the last era of basketball. We're talking about the Warriors. We're talking about LeBron's dominance in these conferences. Now, I don't think LeBron's teams are necessarily super team outside of Miami, but there's no guarantees. There were years where I woke up and was ready for NBA basketball knowing damn well it was going to be Cavs versus Warriors in the finals. Now there's no guarantee. There's parity. And this is the most parity we've had ever. 5 straight years of new champions. Maybe 6 at the end of the season. We don't know. Denver is amazing, but they're not, like I said last episode, they're not unfuckwittable. So it's the all-time level of parity. You would have to go back to the 70s to get this level of parity. Because again, it was LeBron, it was Curry, it was Shaq, it was Tim Duncan, and not in this order, but it was Shaq, it was Kobe, it was Tim Duncan, it was Michael Jeffrey Jordan, it was Bird. Like, those guys dominated eras at a time. And now, whose era are we in? So because of that, I can't look at the history and say, the Warriors are a team that broke it all down and drafted Steph Curry at this pig and then drafted this guy at this pig. I can't look at the LeBron James Cavs team because that team is just different than any other ones. So history won't give you the answer. But recent history, like my guy mentioned, has the Raptors. I don't know. Are fans too early to try to blow it up? Because of right now, the 4 teams that I mentioned, the 2 teams that everybody's going to mention about blowing it up is the Raptors, is the Bulls, right? And blowing it up in the sense for these 2 teams is not tearing it down to its nuts and bolts, because if you're the Raptors, if you do blow it up, you're keeping Scotty Barnes. That's the thing. If the Bulls blow it up, and my assumption is that you keeping Kobe White, you keeping Patrick Williams, but the veteran / quality players that are on the team maybe get shipped out. Now, one of the things that I have neglected to talk about in this conversation is draft capital, right? In these situations where you're building towards the middle, it is so very important to hold your draft picks. It is so very important to hold your draft picks. And that's why I look at what the Pacers are doing right now with them having the draft capital that they have. And like, man, of the teams building towards the middle, they're the one with the most upside. Because if that player does become available for them, they're going to have the assets to potentially trade for him. Now, I'm not saying that we're talking Raptors getting Kawhi Leonard level of talent, because again, Kawhi Leonard may have been coming off his injuries, but Kawhi Leonard was a dog. But just like getting that next player in the door, they have those assets. The Pacers are a team that notoriously has been building towards the middle, and it makes sense in the context of their organization, in the context of where they are as a team. We're talking about Indiana, and that's just not a place that you let's say keep a bunch of salary cap available. You're going to have to draft extremely well, and you're going to have to make timely trades. Again, I mentioned they have 0 championships in their franchise history, so it's not like this recipe has completely worked, but as far as being competent every single season, and now it's just a little bit different, because I don't want to get disrespectful or misspeak here, but the way Tyrese Haliburton is playing for them, at this age and time, they haven't really had that throughout their franchise. And I know you're going to say, Kenny, Paul George. Paul George was amazing. And he went toe-to-toe with LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not taking that away. We talking about Tyrese Halliburton. He has 0 playoff games played in his career. Like, pump the brakes. But I mean, in the sense that this man, Tyrese, is a system, and he has a way, and we have yet to see this just yet, but he has a way of playing that makes me believe that if you trade for that next guy, that guy might stick around because playing with Tyrese Halliburton seems so damn fun because he's such an unselfish player. You know, Paul George unfortunately suffered a career-altering injury when he was hitting his stardom, right? He hit that moment. I remember exactly where I was. I was at the bowling alley for somebody's birthday. And this they didn't have the TVs on ESPN or whatever. But I remember coming home, turning on ESPN, and seeing that Paul George had that injury. I remember it. Not like it was yesterday, but I remember it. But having a guy like Tyrese Halliburton makes you feel like building towards the middle, not that bad of an idea. Hell, the way he's playing, he's not even going to allow you to tear it down to the boat to start from scratch because he is just helping you win too many basketball games, you know? On these other teams, obviously you have the conversation on what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. The Bulls do not have the luxury that I mentioned with the Indiana Pacers as far as having that draft capital because in order to build the team that they've orchestrated right now, they traded away draft picks. And I think that's important. So I still don't know exactly where I land on here because I obviously it is very situational. Like I tried to look at the last teams to blow it up and how are they doing. It's just too early, right? The Orlando Magic blew it up and traded Vucevic to the Bulls, and traded Aaron Gordon to the Denver Nuggets. And then they got back Paolo Banchero. They got back Franz Wagner directly from that trade. They got Jalen Suggs. Pretty much the entire core that they have right now that they love was due to a blow up. They haven't achieved anything yet. But maybe 3 years down the line, we look back and say that was a really, really good blow up. Because the one thing that these blow up things are, it's crucial that you make every single decision right. But it is so much easier to miss a draft pick versus hit one. So that's when you blow it up. And we've seen teams blow it up and just be bad for years and years and years. Most of that deals with their talent evaluation when it comes to draft picks. So it's important that you hit those picks. And the Orlando Magic, for the most part, Paolo hit, Franz hit, Jalen Suggs for the draft spot, maybe not a hit, but still a really good quality player. Still too early on Anthony Black or Jet Howard from this previous draft, but you have to be able to do that. So I'm just opening the conversation to y'all. I'm opening the conversation to y'all. Is operating from the bottom as far as a full teardown make more sense in order to become a competent / a team that is competing for a championship? Or is being towards the middle, drafting well, and making timely trades make more sense? You let me know. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get into the action. The app is very easy to use, and there's so many ways to bet, like same-game parlays or the Parlay Hub, which is a way to find the most popular parlays. So visit FanDuel.com/Kenny and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, the official partner of the NBA. I feel like so far this season, most people have their opinions on who's going to win what award. I've mentioned that Joel Embiid at this moment in time is my MVP. Even though that boy Shake, no, it's Joel Embiid. But most people have either Chet or Wemby. DPOY for right now is a lot of Rudy Gobert, but there's been some conversations about other people. The one award, and it's because it's a new award that a lot of people not talking about, is a Clutch Player of the Year award. Now we saw De'Aaron Fox with it with flying colors last season. It was no dispute that De'Aaron Fox was the clutch player in the league. This season, it's a little bit more interesting. If you go to FanDuel Sportsbook, you can see the odds. And right now, Damian Lillard is the favorite, tied with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at plus 340. And I understand. I think Damian Lillard is leading the league in fourth quarter points. So he's been phenomenal. He's been good. He's been good in the fourth quarter. But when I think about clutchest players in the league, I'm thinking about a complete fourth quarter takeover plus some game winners plus this and that. And right now, I don't know. I love looking at the people, right? Third on the list is Tyrese Halliburton at plus 650. Cool. He's got some moments where he's iced some games so far this season. Or maybe I'm thinking about, he did some last year too. But like right now, I think this award is up for grabs. Steph Curry is another player that has a ton of fourth quarter points. But when you think about Clutch Player of the Year, they have had a lot of clutch games, one of the most clutch games in all of basketball. And I think they're 10-8 in those games, which is a positive record. But we talk about clutch player of the year, like De'Aaron Fox, fourth quarter clutch numbers last season, phenomenal. And I think that he might have broke it in the first year, because I don't know if people are replicating that. So Dame is the favorite right now. If I was going to throw a little bit on, I might look at Luka Doncic. Now, a lot of the games don't end up being super close, but right now he is a plus 1,500. Plus 1,500 for Luka Doncic, and he's already got moments right now. And for the rest of the season, he might get more opportunities, but it's hard to get opportunities when you beating a team by 30 points or you're losing to that same team by 30 points. So think about the Utah Jazz game, okay? But there's just a lot of good options right now, and I think though we have some favorites, none of those people have been high enough for me to say that they've secured it so far. Now it's time for my favorite segment on the Kenny Beecham podcast, the Ask KB. You go to X, you go to the comment section of these episodes, you use the hashtag AskKB, ask your questions, and I try to get to a few every single episode. The first one comes from Giannis Burner. What's the biggest problem you see with each of the real contenders in the league? And now you about to get me in trouble by asking real contenders. So I went through some teams, and I'm giving one sentence responses to every single team. And maybe we dive into this a little bit more in future episodes. But what is the biggest hole/problem with every single contender as of right now? Celtics are too reliant on the three-point shot. Damn, this is hard, because I want to dive into that just a little bit more. Jason Tatum at this point in time, his pull-up mid-range jump shot is not it has not been a good shot for some years, but he does it all the time. Now he can hit some timely ones, but the team in general is just too reliant on the three-point shot, and I feel like you need to have a little bit of combination. They're the number one team as far as three-point takes per game, but number 30 in mid-range jump shots at all, and they also don't get to the rim. So it's just too much three-point shots. I know it's supposed to be one sentence, but I think I needed to say that. The Bucks' point of attack defense is dreadful. It just is. We're going to talk about this in a little bit. Tyrese Halliburton / every single guard on the Pacers in their 5 games they played against each other have just ran circles around them. It's supposed to be one sentence, but I can't help myself. The 76ers are too dependent on their top 2 guys, and that's why in the last episode, I mentioned that I want to see them make a trade. Not a trade to get a huge contract, to go get a third star, but just another guy that you can trust with the ball in his hands. The Miami Heat, oh my God, are they considered a real contender? You tell me. They just made it to the NBA Finals, and the one thing that I said is I just haven't seen enough of them to really know, because they haven't been healthy. They've been able to win basketball games with it's like the bare minimum. Eric Spoelstra, but we haven't seen Jimmy at full force just yet this season. Bam has been amazing. When Tyler Hero's been back, he's been amazing. Duncan has been really good, but I have not seen many games. I don't know if these guys have played any minutes together. At least enough of a sample size for me to have an opinion about them with Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler Hero together this season. So just not enough. The Wolves have too many stretches of anemic offense. I just watched that again today. My number one game every single day. I have like marquee games for me to like dive into and really watch. It was Timberwolves versus Pelicans. Y'all know how high I am on the Pelicans. And anytime they go against a really good team, I'm dived in. And the Pelicans wipe the floor with them boys. Every time Zion plays against Rudy Gobert, he's good for 25 plus on 70% shooting. It makes no sense to me. Oh, I guess it does. He's a monster. But the Timberwolves just have too many long stretches where they just can't hit a shot. And that is a problem. That is their biggest problem, you ask me. Now, they have a few problems, not even great, but that's their biggest one. The Thunder are too small. Watched this against the Boston Celtics the other night where they gave up, I think, 19, 18 offensive rebounds. And anytime they go against one of the bigger teams across basketball, you can feel that team is too small, where the backup center is Kenrich Williams and sometimes Jalen Williams, the other one. So they're just a little bit too small. The Nuggets, their bench is just too young and unreliable at this point. I know the starting lineup is as good as it gets, but eventually you're going to dive into the 6th man, 7th man, 8th man. And they're just a little bit too young for my own personal opinion. The Suns, what the hell can I say? They've played 60 minutes together. I have no idea how to gauge this team. 60 minutes, they've been amazing, but I just don't really know. And then the Clippers, in my notes, again, I'll be having notes for these episodes. It's blank. I don't know. I don't know what the biggest hole for the Clippers are right now. Does that tell you something? They either tells you that I'm not watching enough Clippers to really deviate what the holes are in the game, or that their current stretch of the last 15 or so games have been amazing. Kawhi Leonard is playing like a top 10 player. And we know he has that capability. But seeing him play, I think he just missed 4 straight games, and then they lost, I think, 3 of those 4 games. But when he's been healthy, he's been unguardable. And also, he's not playing DPOY defense. Don't want to say that. But he has a few possessions every single game where it's like, oh, there that brother go. So I got a blank right now. There's got to be something. No team is perfect. They're definitely not perfect. I still think the Celtics are the best team in basketball. And I just gave you 30 seconds on why they're their biggest hole. I just don't know the Clippers just yet. And I think I just got to go back into the film. Because even today, they're going against the Suns. And by the time I turned that game on, it was 50-30. The next question comes from Piper. #AskKB. He actually used the hashtag. We love you, Piper. Are the Thunder legitimate contenders in your eyes? Do you still think they're a year or 2 away? The Thunder have been the talk of town since their game against the Boston Celtics. And it makes sense. You go against the Boston Celtics, the best team in basketball, by many statistics in the overall record. And they didn't blow them out the water because the Boston Celtics had a huge run in that 4th quarter. But for 3 quarters, OKC was taking care of business. And it's like, okay, so you beat the Celtics. You beat the Timberwolves. You beat the Denver Nuggets twice this season. Like, just go look at their wins this year and tell me that does not look like a championship team. And I know we're going to come back to this, but let's eliminate the fact that they're one of the 4 youngest teams in basketball. Let's eliminate the fact that they have almost 0 playoff history. Almost 0. Shea's got a few games. Lou Dort's got some games before this whole integration. And then I want to say Davis Bertans has some games, but everybody else has 0 playoff games in their NBA career. Let's ignore those facts. Let's just look strictly on the basketball on the court. That team looks better than many of the teams I just talked about being contenders this season. But those other things are a factor. They just are. Usually you need some kind of playoff experience before you get the Larry O'Brien. Traditionally, you're not going to be as young as their core rotation's average age is 21 years old. Yeah. But just on the basketball, undoubtedly a contender. But those other factors, man. I mentioned that they feel a bit small. And I'm a guy that I've said on this podcast before that I want to see them do the consolidation trade with some of the draft capital and go get another guy. I don't know how I feel about that anymore. Piper asked if they're still a year or 2 away. Now, the league is completely open, and that's like the double-edged sword right now, because you can say, oh, we're going to wait another year and see what we have. We're going to wait another 2 years to see what we have, but we don't know what the league is going to look like in a year. We don't know what teams can be built in a year's time. So right now, we're seeing that, hell, there's flaws in every team. And we got 15 first-round picks for the next 5 years. Maybe we should consolidate a little bit and go for it now. But also, going for it now can mess up the chemistry, can mess up the vibe, can mess up the entire rotation at the moment. I just don't know how I feel about that. If you ask me today, are they real-life contenders? Can they win 16 games in the playoffs without losing 4 of 7? Right? That's how that works. Yeah. I'm going to say a tentative yes. Yeah, that feels tough. If you're asking me Western Conference hierarchy, I still believe that the Denver Nuggets are my favorite to win the Western Conference. I'm becoming more and more a believer of the Clippers as a team that can win the conference. Again, I need to see some more. I don't know what to think about a team like the Phoenix Suns, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Call me crazy. And you let, again, there's a conversation. I'm the one with the microphone, but the comment section's there on my X account, Twitter, whatever. I have more faith in OKC winning 4 series over the Timberwolves winning 4 series. And the Timberwolves are the better team better team in record wise, but I think OKC's higher on that list for me personally. I also do believe that a lot of it's going to be matchup based, right? Who you match up against. Because some of these teams, as of right now, I'm gonna see if I could do this without messing up the audio. I'm gonna type in NBA standings real quick. I just want to see if the playoffs were to start today, as of right now. I forgot the NBA takes 24 hours to update their standings. OKC just lost a game to Atlanta, second night of a back-to-back. It wasn't pretty. It was not pretty. Okay, put on my standings. As of right now, OKC has the 2 spot at the moment. They'd have to go against one of the play-in teams of Dallas, Phoenix, Houston, and the LA Lakers. On the other tip, the Timberwolves would have to go against either the Mavericks or the Suns. You know, it's matchup based. And I don't know how to feel. The Timberwolves haven't looked amazing. They've been good. They haven't looked amazing in their last 8 or so games, I would say. And while the OKC is like actively winning a bunch of games versus good teams. So are they contenders? Tentative, yes, but like, I'm trying to figure it out. This portion of the Kenny Beecham podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. With over 28 million different downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 ticketing app on the market. I personally have been to a ton of live events. We're talking sporting events, concerts, festivals, comedy. I've been to it all, and I've always bought my tickets on SeatGeek because it takes tickets from all over the internet and puts it in one central location for you. So my Bulls aren't great, but there's nothing better than a live sporting event, so you'll catch me at a few games. I pick the game that I want to go to, I see the venue, I find a seat, and every single ticket is rated on a scale 1 through 10. The closer to 10, the better the deal for you. And you know I got a deal for y'all, so hit the link in the description, download the SeatGeek app, and use code ENJOY for $20 off your first purchase of tickets. Again, that is code ENJOY for $20 off your first purchase of tickets with SeatGeek. I want to say again, SeatGeek, thank you for sponsoring this portion of the podcast. I want to kind of do a quick little look around the association because it's been a week since we've last had an episode, so I kind of want to talk about some of the things. The first one, the most surprising thing I could have imagined a couple nights ago, Jordan Clarkson got the first triple-double from a Jazz player since 2008. That just feels wrong. And it got me thinking like, okay, since 2008, who's been on a roster that's been a guy that could get triple doubles? Now, Ricky Rubio got one in the postseason, so it doesn't count for regular season. But Ricky Rubio is one of the guys that came to mind. And I can't believe that he didn't get one for the Utah Jazz. Also can't believe that Donovan Mitchell didn't get one. Now, he's not a player that's actively getting 30 triple doubles a season, but it's like, I feel like in current basketball, triple doubles, we see multiple triple doubles a night in a lot of cases. So to see that they haven't held one since 2008, and that 2008 player was Carlos Boozer, was just exciting. And it made me happy for Jordan Clarkson. He's in the record books. But also, it made me think about some of the other conversations that people have had across the association recently about stat padding. And in general, I'm not a guy to subscribe to stat padding, the idea of it being a negative thing, because at the end of the day, hell yeah, if I am 2 points away from 30, you think I'm not going to try to get my round number? If I'm 8 assists away from a double-double, you think I ain't trying to get this extra assist? 2 rebounds away from a triple-double, you think I ain't trying to tell my teammates, let me get the board? Like, let's be real. Put yourself in these shoes. Stat padding is a normal thing across the association. It happens every single night. Nobody talking about it for Jordan Clarkson. And I'm not saying they should. I'm not even saying they should. But when Jordan Clarkson was 1 rebound away, I saw them Utah Jazz players box out everybody and let the ball bounce on the floor before Jordan Clarkson picked it up. And they're not wrong in it. But nobody's talking about stat pattern. Let one of the other players, one of the star players that is known for getting good stats, do a very similar thing. Oh snap. Tyrese Halliburton. I have 19 assists and we're up by 15 against the Bulls. What harm is it that I want my 20? Or when Luka Doncic is still in the game when he up at 30 and he got 38 points. Let him get another layup. 40 points looks so much better than 38. On a headliner, 40 points looks so much better than 38. As long as it's not actively hurting the team, there's no harm in it. At the end of the day, a lot of these players' contracts are based on their numbers. A lot of your opinions about players are based on their numbers. Because the normal person cannot watch every single game of Luka Doncic. The normal person cannot watch every single game of every single team. So we look at the box score and say, dang, Luka had 40. Oh my God, the Pistons are up by 4 points. I just got a notification. Pistons are up by 4 points 3 minutes ago. They might get a second win of the week. Oh my God, groundbreaking stuff. Nobody cares about stat padding. At least you shouldn't, as long as it's not being a detriment to the team. And there has been times when it's been detriment to the team. It just has. But in a harmless, I'm a couple stats away from a round number, ain't nothing wrong with that, in my personal opinion. The next thing I want to talk about is the Trae Young renaissance. In the month of December, this is a new year. They just won their last game against the OKC Thunder. Trae Young averaged 30.4 points per game, 12.2 assists, 47% from the field, and 42% from three. He's been phenomenal. Obviously, in that month span, the Atlanta Hawks have not been. And there again, I mentioned on the last episode, they're one of the most interesting teams come deadline. But Trae Young has been phenomenal again, and that's a good thing to see, because I was getting a bit worried. Now we're talking about a 1 month sample size, because before that he was not shooting the ball very well, but a 1 month sample size. But I'm going to still use this as a positive, because I was having a conversation with the homies about Trae Young as a player, and we look at, I want to say, the 2021 season. That was the year that they went all the way to the conference finals, and he was phenomenal all year long. But the years surrounding that, since that, he has not been a good, and I'm talking about percentage-wise, three-point shooter. He's been a high-volume, low-percentage three-point shooter. And I was like, okay, what is the real version of Trae Young? Is he the lethal three-point shooter we saw in the 2021 run? Or is he more like the 2022 version or the 2023 version, which is still a really good NBA player, but not as lethal? Because if he's not making you pay on the 70-foot three-point shots, which he's the best in the league at, then how good is he as a number one? If he's going back to shooting 42%, I got no questions, especially when you consider, and this is comparing him to himself, this is the best defense he's ever played in his career. It's not, I still won't call it good defense because he's undersized. It's hard for a guy that's 6'1", 6 foot to be a positive defensive player, but he's not the worst defensive player in the league like he was 2 years ago. So to see him hit his shots, play make, and have the load of an offense and still be one of the top 5 offenses in basketball with Trae Young, and also see him competing on defense, it's just good to see. I think the rest of the team orchestrated around him just isn't very good. The next one we got is Bradley Beal was back, and he is back, but now Kevin Durant is out. But when he was back, they went on a nice little 4-game win streak. And again, I was super excited to see them play against the Clippers tonight. Obviously, Kevin Durant was out, so that was a game I didn't pay too much attention to. But Bradley Beal is back. The numbers say that them three together and their small sample size looks really good. I'm just excited to see a little bit more of it. Bucks versus Pacers was on my list. Modern day rivalry. Both in the same division. Tyrese Halliburton said in his post game a couple days ago when they went against them, because they've gone each other 5 times this season, by the way, because the in-season tournament and then the 4 regular season games. He said it's not a rivalry because we haven't won anything. And I think that's the right mindset. Similar to Chet when he was asked, what is he, what was the exact question? What is he proven in the NBA so far? He said, not a damn thing. I've only played 30 games. Tyrese Halliburton had that same energy. Hell, I have never made a playoff appearance. We haven't done anything as a team. But from me watching these games, that is a real life, we hate each other thing. From the ball situation to Damian Lillard saying, be humble. But he just said, in so many words, he told Tyrese Halliburton to be humble after he did this thing to him in the in-season tournament. And today they had some more ruffling the feathers. Isaiah Jackson's getting to some faces. Benedict Mathurin's getting into faces. Damian Lillard's catching a poster. It's been beautiful. I love it. And unfortunately, we won't see it again this season unless it's in the playoffs. But a real-life rivalry right now. And I'm here for it. I'm disappointed in Dame, though, because since he's told Tyrese to be humble, again, in so many words, he's been awful in every single one of these games versus the Pacers. Like, I wanted one supernova Damian Lillard game. Damian Lillard, Tyrese Halliburton, head to head. It ain't been that. It's been all Pacers. It's really been all Pacers. It's been DJ McConnell. It's been Tyrese. It's been Isaiah Jackson. It's been everybody else. And the last thing I want to say, I guess I mentioned a little bit earlier, the Raptors have been fun since the trade. Now, they almost blew a game today to the Grizzlies, but they've been fun since the trade. To see Emmanuel quickly be a lead guard full-time has been kind of cool. They were a team that were borderline, I'm not watching them anymore this season. To like, hell, I mentioned I really love their broadcasting team, and now you're telling me that they're going to be good to watch? I'm all in. So before we get out of here, we tested the waters on this segment a couple weeks ago, and then producer Greg went on a nice little vacation. But it is time for producer Greg's I Test Takes, and we'll see if we agree or disagree with him.
The ice, Chico. They never lie.
Producer Greg is here, man. How you feeling?
I'm good, Kenny. Ready to do this. So, foul hunting has been a point of contention for the last few years. Mm-hmm. I thought the NBA may have fixed it a couple years ago. They had a rule change, but it's kind of come back a little bit. So let me get your take on this. The foul hunting, or the foul grifting, as you want to call it, crown once belonged to James Harden. Then it was Trae Young, and now the crown belongs to Joel Embiid.
If we have to give a crown out, he's probably the guy that gets it. He's probably the guy that gets it. But I've mentioned this before. I don't blame the guy. he is one of the toughest players to officiate. And any 7-foot guy that can score on all three levels is going to be tough to officiate. I mean, even Jokic, who has a bad whistle, he's a tough player to officiate. And we've always talked about Joel Embiid being out of shape and this and that. He uses that extra time at the free throw line to get his energy back up. But yes, there are multiple times per game, at least 2 fouls per game. You're like, he got that one. And I feel it. But I'm also past the point of caring, if that makes sense. Sometimes, again, it can be egregious. And it has been throughout the history, not just Joel Embiid, just through the history of this sport recently. But I'm kind of past it because right now, officiating is probably as hard as it's ever really been.
Do you blame the league, like the rules? You blame the refs? It sounds like you don't blame the players.
Yes, I blame the NBA even more than I blame the refs. And I don't blame the players at all necessarily. No, they deserve to take some responsibility for it because they're actively the ones doing it. But the league has done it to itself by incentivizing these high scores, these 30-point per game scores. And again, I'm a guy that just loves the NBA, so I'm not complaining that we have multiple people averaging 30 per game, but they've allowed it to be so offensive oriented that a little bit of flavor on the defensive side of the ball doesn't go anywhere. But a little bit of flavor on offense, whether it be a palming or carry or extra step on a layup, they get those benefit of the doubts while the defenders don't really get many of them. So I think it's really the NBA's fault. And I don't even know how you really turn it around because the players have now become accustomed to kind of playing this way. You mentioned that they might have got rid of it with some changes here or there, but we've back to square one in a lot of cases. So I'm giving a lot of credit or a lot of the blame to the league, I think.
The Thunder will have a Christmas Day game within 2 years.
Absolutely. It will be a disservice to NBA fans if they do not get a game on Christmas. Now, this year, the NBA was dominated by the NFL on Christmas Day. The numbers weren't even close, but again, it makes sense. We're talking about real stakes games in the NFL versus just random regular season games for the NBA. I thought this year's slate was cool, but it wasn't amazing. The OKC Thunder has showed us in the games that they have had national TV games or even just their regular league pass games, that's a team that people want to tune in for. You have an up-and-coming superstar player in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a bunch of other fun, electric young hoopers. I think it's always fun to see a team's how many nationally televised games they get from one year to another. I'm assuming that OKC's number is going to skyrocket next season, and part of that is going to get Christmas. I do have a gripe with the NBA about Christmas. Give us back jerseys. We need it. A patch is not enough. Give us real life jerseys. And there's been years where I hated the jerseys, but at least they made you feel like it was Christmas. We need more of that.
This last one is a bit personal for me. Waiting until the split second after the buzzer sounds to shoot a half court or a 3/4 court shot is an incredibly common act in the NBA, an incredibly selfish act that should be called out more. The only player that consistently does not wait until after the buzzer to save his percentages is Steph Curry.
Yeah, I actually saw a shot early today when I was just watching where it was Zaire Williams. They were down by 13 points or something. He gave a 3/4 court shot, and I was like, my man, my man. And I think this is a take that I can agree with you because, again, everything about these players is numbers based, right? So if you take so many heaves, my percentage is dropping, and now I may not be recognized as a good 3-point shooter. And historically, I think it was either Al-Farouq Aminu or Mo Harkless that had a clause in his contract that if you shoot 36% from three for a season, you get an extra X amount of dollars. And for the last 10 or so games of the season, he shot 0 threes, not even open ones. Like, he was incentivized to keep his percentage up. I love the moments where a player throws up a shot and it goes in. The thing I hate the most is the shot goes up after and it goes in. It's like, brother, you had all of the time in the world to get it up, but you was just playing it too selfishly. You never really know if that shot is going to go in, and you never really know if you're going to need 3 more points to win a basketball game. A buddy of mine, we talked about this on our other podcast, now named Numbers on the Board, said in the half-court heaves, end-of-quarter heaves, as long as it's past the 3-point shot, so we're talking, what would be considered a 4-point line or half-court or above, should not count towards percentages. A heave is a heave in itself. And I like that idea. Because now we can get the cool moments where you see somebody shoot a full-court shot. It's just good for the growth of the game. Social media, oh my God, he hit a 50-foot jump shot, But it is selfish. And you never really know what's going to happen.
I think that's a great solution. Great solution.
Let us know what you think about producer Greg's eye test takes. I think he hit today. I think it's a good one. I think it's a good one. I think he shot 2 for 3. Because personally, again, the foul baiting thing is not something that I care about too much. But I like it. I do want to say I appreciate y'all watching or listening to this episode. Again, this is a year of leveling up. And honestly, if I'm being candid with y'all, leveling up doesn't happen without y'all support and y'all love from the previous year. So again, I want to thank you. And I want to thank you for your continued support. A like goes a very long way. Tell a friend if they're looking for basketball-oriented podcasts, that the Kenny Beecham podcast / Numbers on the Board, which is coming out in about 10 days or so, are the ways to go as we take back our content as owners. Again, it's just such a crazy thing. I can't believe that we did it. A little bit scary. It's a scary thought. It's a really scary thought, if I'm being honest with you. Because a lot of things can go wrong when you're the owner. I'm just saying. But we appreciate you. I appreciate you. The whole team appreciates you. And we will see y'all in a couple days with a new episode.